Introduction. Self-help exposed. Sophie's question and the potential for rapid change. Do you want to improve an important aspect of your life? Perhaps lose weight, find your perfect partner, obtain your dream job, or simply be happier? Try this simple exercise. Close your eyes and imagine the new you. Think how great you would look in those close-fitting designer jeans, dating Brad Pitt or Angelina Jolie, sitting in a luxurious leather chair at the top of the corporate ladder, or sipping a pina colada as the warm waves of the Caribbean gently lap at your feet. The good news is that this type of exercise has been recommended by some in the self-help industry for years. The bad news is that a large body of research now shows that such exercises are at best ineffective and at worst harmful. Although asking you to imagine your perfect self may make you feel better, engaging in such mental escapism may also have the unfortunate side effect of leaving you unprepared for the difficulties that crop up on the rocky road to success, thus increasing the chances of you faltering at the first hurdle rather than persisting in the face of failure. Fantasizing about heaven on earth may put a smile on your face, but is unlikely to help transform your dreams into reality. Other research suggests that the same goes for many popular self-help techniques that claim to improve your life. Attempting to think yourself happy by suppressing negative thoughts can make people obsess on the very thing that makes them unhappy. Group brainstorming can produce fewer and less original ideas than individuals working alone. Punching a pillow and screaming out loud can increase, rather than decrease, your anger and stress levels. Then there is the infamous Yale Goal Study. According to some writers, in 1953 a team of researchers interviewed Yale's graduating seniors, asking them whether they had written down the specific goals that they wanted to achieve in life. 20 years later, the researchers tracked down the same cohort and found that the 3% of people who had specific goals all those years before had accumulated more personal wealth than the other 97% of their classmates combined. It is a great story, and frequently cited in self-help books and seminars to illustrate the power of goal setting. There is just one small problem, as far as anyone can tell. The experiment never actually took place. In 2007, writer Lawrence Tabak from the magazine Fast Company attempted to track down the study, contacting several writers who had cited it, the secretary of the Yale class of 1953, and other researchers who had attempted to discover whether the study had actually happened. No one could produce any evidence that it had ever been conducted, causing Tabak to conclude that it was almost certainly nothing more than an urban myth. For years, self-help gurus had been happy to describe a study without checking their facts. Both the public and business world have bought into modern-day mind myths for years, and so doing may have decreased the likelihood of achieving their aims and ambitions. Worse still, such failures often encourage people to believe that they cannot control their lives. This is especially unfortunate, as even the smallest loss of perceived control can have dramatic effects on people's confidence, happiness, and lifespan. In one classic study conducted by Ellen Langer at Harvard University, half the residents in a nursing home were given a houseplant and asked to look after it, while the other half were given an identical plant but told that the staff would take responsibility for it 6 months later. The residents who had been robbed of even this small amount of control over their lives were significantly less happy, healthy, and active than the others. Even more distressingly, 30% of residents who had not looked after their plant had died, compared to 15% of those who had been allowed to exercise such control. Similar results have been found in many areas, including education, career, health, relationships, and dieting. The message is clear: those who do not feel in control of their lives are less successful and less psychologically and physically healthy than those who do feel in control. A few years ago, I was having lunch with a friend called Sophie. Sophie is a bright, successful 30-something who holds a senior position in a firm of management consultants. Over lunch, Sophie explained that she had recently bought a well-known book on increasing happiness and asked me what I thought of the industry. I explained that I had serious reservations about the scientific backing for some of the techniques being promoted, and described how any failure to change could do considerable psychological harm. Sophie looked concerned, and then asked whether academic psychology had produced more scientifically supported ways of improving people's lives. I started to describe some of the quite complex academic work into happiness, and after about 15 minutes or so, Sophie stopped me. She politely explained that, interesting though it was, she was a busy person, and asked whether I could come up with some effective advice that didn't take up quite so much time to implement. I asked how long I had. Sophie glanced at her watch, smiled, and replied about a minute. Sophie's comment made me stop and think. Many people are attracted to self-development and improvement because it offers quick and easy solutions to various issues in their lives. Unfortunately, most academic psychology either fails to address these issues or presents far more time-consuming and complex answers. I wondered whether there were tips and techniques hidden away in academic journals that were empirically supported but quick to carry out. Over the course of a few months, I carefully searched through endless journals containing research papers from many different areas of psychology. As I examined the work, a promising pattern emerged, with researchers working in quite different fields developing techniques that help people achieve their aims and ambitions in minutes, not months. I collected together hundreds of these studies drawn from many different areas of the behavioral sciences. From mood to memory, persuasion to procrastination, resilience to relationships, together they represent a new science of rapid change. There is a very old story, often told to fill time during training courses, involving a man trying to fix his broken boiler. Despite his best efforts over many months, he simply can't mend it. Eventually, he gives in and decides to call in an expert repairman. The engineer arrives, gives one gentle tap on the side of the boiler, and stands back as it erupts into life. The engineer presents the man with a bill, and the man argues that he should only pay a small fee as the job only took the engineer a few moments. The engineer quietly explains that the man is not paying for the time he took to tap the boiler, but rather the years of experience involved in knowing exactly where to tap, just like the expert engineer tapping the boiler. The techniques described in this book demonstrate that effective change does not have to be time-consuming. In fact, it can take less than a minute and is often simply a question of knowing exactly where to tap. 1. Happiness: why positive thinking often fails. How the real route to happiness involves a pencil, keeping the perfect diary, small acts of kindness, and developing the gratitude attitude. Why is it important to be happy? Well, for one thing, by definition, you will feel better. However, there is more to it than that. Happiness does not just make you enjoy life more, it actually affects how successful you are in both your personal and professional life. A few years ago, Sonia Lyubomirsky and her colleagues from the University of California set about the mammoth task of reviewing hundreds of studies in which experimenters cheered up selected people and then monitored the effects of their newfound joy. All sorts of procedures were employed to make participants feel happy, including having them smell freshly cut flowers, read out positive affirmations, eat chocolate cake, dance, or watch a funny film. Sometimes the experimenters resorted to trickery, telling participants that they had performed especially well on an IQ test, or ensuring that they accidentally found some money in the street. Regardless of the method used, the overall result was clear. Happiness doesn't just flow from success, it actually causes it. After trawling the data from over 250,000 participants, Lyubomirsky discovered impressive benefits to being happy. Happiness makes people more sociable and altruistic. It increases how much they like themselves and others. It improves their ability to resolve conflict, and it strengthens their immune systems. The cumulative effect means that people have more satisfying and successful relationships, find especially fulfilling careers, and live longer, healthier lives. Given the emotional and tangible benefits of happiness, it is not surprising that everyone wants a slice of the pie. But what is the most effective way of putting a permanent smile on your face? Ask most people the question, and you are likely to receive a two-word answer: more money. In survey after survey, the need for a fatter wallet consistently tops the must-have list for happiness too. But is it really possible to buy happiness? Or do financial aspirations set you on the road to despair? Part of the answer comes from a remarkable study conducted in the 1970s by Philip Brickman and his colleagues. From the Northwestern University, Brickman wanted to discover what happens to people's happiness when their financial dreams come true. Does a huge windfall really create a long-term smile? Or does the initial thrill quickly fade away as newfound fortune becomes commonplace? Brickman contacted a group of people who had won a major prize in the Illinois state lottery, including several who had hit the $1 million jackpot. As a control group, he randomly selected people from the Illinois telephone directory. Everyone was asked to rate how happy they were at that moment and how happy they expected to be in the future. In addition, they were asked to say how much pleasure they derived from everyday pleasures in life, such as chatting with friends, hearing a funny joke, or receiving a compliment. The results provide a striking insight into the relationship between happiness and money. Contrary to popular belief, those who had won the lottery were no more or less happy than those in the control group. There was also no significant difference between the groups when it came to how happy they expected to be in the future. In fact, there was only one difference. Compared to those who had won the lottery, the people in the control group derived significantly more pleasure from the simple things in life, as winning the lottery is a rather unusual way of obtaining financial security. Psychologists have also examined the relationship between income and happiness among those who have worked for their wealth. Some of this work has involved carrying out large-scale international surveys by having people rate how happy they are and then plotting countries' average happiness ratings against their gross national product. Point 4. The results suggest that, while people in very poor nations are not as happy as those in wealthier countries, this relationship vanishes once a country has obtained a relatively modest GNP. Studies examining the possible link between salary and happiness found the same type of pattern. When people can afford the necessities in life, an increase in income does not result in a significantly happier life. So why should this be the case? Part of the reason is that we all get used to what we have very quickly. Buying a new car or bigger house provides a short-term feel-good boost, but we quickly become accustomed to it and sink back to our pre-purchase level of joy. The psychologist David Myers once phrased it, "Thanks to our capacity to adapt to ever greater fame and fortune, yesterday's luxuries can soon become today's necessities and tomorrow's relics." 5. If money cannot buy happiness, what is the best way of putting a long-term smile on your face? The bad news is that research shows that about 50% of your overall sense of happiness is genetically determined, and so cannot be altered. 6. The better news is that another 10% is due to general circumstances that are difficult to change. However, the best news is that the remaining 40% is derived from your day-to-day behavior and the way in which you think about yourself and others. With a little knowledge, this large chunk can be changed quickly, allowing you to become substantially happier in just a few seconds. The problem is that much of the advice offered in some self-help books and courses is at odds with the results of scientific research. Take, for example, the power of positive thinking. Does the road to happiness really depend on people being able to simply push negative thoughts out of their mind? Actually, research suggests that such thought suppression is far more likely to increase, rather than decrease, misery. In the mid-1980s, Harvard psychologist Daniel Wegner chanced across an obscure but intriguing quote from Dostoevsky's Winter Notes on Summer Impressions. Try to pose for yourself this task, not to think of a polar bear, and you will see that the cursed thing will come to mind every minute. Wegner decided to carry out a simple experiment to discover if this was true. Each person from a group of willing volunteers was made to sit alone in a room and told to think about anything, but not to imagine Dostoevsky's white bear. Everyone was then asked to ring a bell each time the band bear sprang to mind. Within moments, a cacophony of bells indicated that Dostoevsky was right. Attempting to suppress certain thoughts makes people obsess on the very topic that they are attempting to avoid. Other work has shown how this effect operates in real life, with one study, conducted by Jennifer Borton and Elizabeth Casey from Hamilton College in New York, providing a dramatic demonstration of how it affects people's mood and self-esteem. 7. Borton and Casey told a group of people to describe their most upsetting thought about themselves, and then had half the group spend the next 11 days trying to push this thought out of their minds. The remaining participants were asked to carry on life as normal. At the end of each day, everyone indicated the degree to which they had dwelt upon their upsetting thought, and rated their mood, anxiety levels, and self-esteem. The results were conceptually similar to those obtained by Wegner's white bear experiment, with the group attempting to actively suppress their negative thoughts actually thinking about them more, compared to those going about their business as usual. The suppression group also rated themselves as more anxious, more depressed, and having lower self-esteem. More than 20 years of research has demonstrated that this paradoxical phenomenon occurs in many different aspects of everyday life, showing, for example, that asking dieters not to think about chocolate causes them to consume more of it, and asking the public not to elect fools into government encourages them to vote for George Bush 8. So, if thought suppression is not the answer, what can you do? One possibility is to distract yourself, spend time with your family, go to a party, get more involved in your work, take up a new hobby. Although this technique can often provide an effective short-term boost, it will probably not lead to a long-term sense of contentment. For that, research suggests that you need to know how to use a pencil, how to keep the perfect diary, how to carry out small acts of kindness, and how to develop the gratitude attitude. Creating the perfect diary. All of us will experience unpleasant and traumatic events during our lives, perhaps the breakup of a long-term relationship, the death of a loved one, being made redundant, or, on a really bad day, all three. Both common sense and many types of psychotherapy suggest that the best way forward is to share your pain with others. Those adopting this "a problem shared is a problem halved" approach believe that venting your emotions is cathartic and helps you release negative emotion, then move forward. It is a nice idea and one that holds tremendous intuitive appeal. Indeed, surveys show that 90% of the public believe that talking to someone else about a traumatic experience will help ease their pain. 9. But is that really the case? To investigate, Emmanuel Zech and Bernard Rime from the University of Louvain in Belgium carried out an intriguing and important study. 10. A group of participants were asked to select a negative experience from their past. To make the study as realistic as possible, participants were asked to avoid the trivial stuff, like missing a train or not being able to find a parking space, and think instead about the most negative, upsetting emotional event in their life. One they still thought about and still needed to talk about. From death to divorce and from illness to abuse, the issues were serious. One group of participants were then asked to have a long chat with a supportive experimenter about the event, while a second group were invited to chat about a far more mundane topic. A typical day. After 1 week, and then again after 2 months, everyone went back to the lab and completed various questionnaires that measured their emotional well-being. Participants who had spent time talking about their traumatic event thought that the chat had been helpful. However, the various questionnaires told a very different story. In reality, the chat had had no significant impact at all. Participants thought that it was beneficial to share their negative emotional experiences, but in terms of the difference it made to how well they were coping, they might just as well have been chatting about a typical day. So, if talking about negative experiences to a sympathetic but untrained individual is a waste of time, what can be done to help ease the pain of the past? As we saw at the start of this section, trying to suppress negative thoughts can be just as bad. 11 instead. One option involves expressive writing. In several studies, participants who have experienced a traumatic event have been encouraged to spend just a few minutes each day writing a diary-type account of their deepest thoughts and feelings about it. 12 for example. In one study, participants who had just been made redundant were asked to reflect upon their deepest thoughts and feelings about their job loss, including how it had affected both their personal and professional lives. 13 Although these types of exercises were both speedy and simple, the results revealed that participants experienced a remarkable boost in their psychological and physical well-being, including a reduction in health problems and an increase in self-esteem and happiness. The results left psychologists with something of a mystery. Why would talking about a traumatic experience have almost no effect, but writing about it yield such significant benefits? From a psychological perspective, talking and writing are very different. Talking can often be somewhat unstructured, disorganized, even chaotic. In contrast, writing encourages the creation of a storyline and structure that help people make sense of what has happened and work towards a solution. In short, talking can add to a sense of confusion while writing provides a more systematic and solution-based approach. This is clearly helpful for those who have been unfortunate enough to experience real trauma in their lives. But can the same type of idea also be used to promote everyday happiness? 3 different, but related, bodies of research suggest that this is indeed the case. The gratitude attitude. First, take the research into the psychology of gratitude. Present an individual with a constant sound, image or smell and something very peculiar happens. They slowly get more and more used to it and eventually it vanishes from their awareness. For example, if you walk into a room that smells of freshly baked bread, you quickly detect the rather pleasant aroma. However, stay in the room for a few minutes and the smell will appear to disappear. In fact, the only way to reawaken it is to walk out of the room and back in again. Exactly the same concept applies to many areas of our lives, including happiness. Everyone has something to be happy about. Perhaps they have a loving partner, good health, great kids, a satisfying job, close friends, interesting hobbies, caring parents, a roof over their heads, clean water to drink, a signed Billy Joel album, or enough food to eat. However, as time passes, they get used to what they have and, just like the smell of fresh bread, these wonderful assets vanish from their mind. As the old cliché goes, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. Psychologists Robert Emmons and Michael McCullough wondered what would happen to people's happiness levels if they were asked to carry out the conceptual equivalent of leaving the bread-smelling room and coming back in again. The researchers wanted to discover the effect of reminding people of the good things that were constantly present in their lives. 14 Three groups of people were asked to spend a few moments each week writing. The first group listed 5 things for which they were grateful. The second noted down 5 things that annoyed them, and the final group jotted down 5 events that had taken place during the previous week. Everyone scribbled away. The gratitude group remarked on things from seeing the sunset on a summer's day to the generosity of their friends. The annoyed group listed taxes and their children arguing. The events group detailed making breakfast and driving to work. The results were startling. Compared to those in either the annoyed or events groups, those expressing gratitude ended up happier, much more optimistic about the future, physically healthier, and even exercised significantly more. Your inner perfect self when trying to write your way to a happier life. Expressing gratitude is just the tip of the iceberg. There is also the notion of getting in touch with your inner perfect self. In the introduction, I noted that a large body of research shows that visualizing a wonderful future is unlikely to increase the chances of achieving your goals. However, other work suggests that, when it comes to putting a smile on your face, such exercises are more likely to prove beneficial. In a classic study conducted by Laura King from the Southern Methodist University, participants were asked to spend a few minutes during 4 consecutive days describing their ideal future. They were asked to be realistic, but imagine that all had gone as well as it possibly could, and that they had achieved their goals. Another group were asked to imagine a traumatic event that had happened to them, and a third group simply wrote about their plans for the day. The results revealed that those who had described their best possible future ended up significantly happier than those in the other group's 15 in a follow-up study. King and her colleague repeated the experiment, this time having people describe the most wonderful experience in their lives 3 months later. Assessments revealed that compared to a control group, those reliving an intensely happy moment were significantly happier. Affectionate writing. Finally, another body of research has examined the idea of affectionate writing. It may come as no great surprise to learn that being in a loving relationship is good for your physical and psychological health. However, are these benefits the result of receiving love, expressing love, or both? To find out, Corey Floyd and his colleagues from Arizona State University asked some volunteers to think about someone they loved and spend 20 minutes describing why this person meant so much to them. As a control, another group were asked to write about something that had happened to them during the past week. Each group repeated their writing exercise 3 times over the course of 5 weeks. Once again, this simple procedure had a dramatic effect, with those spending just a few minutes engaged in affectionate writing showing a marked increase in happiness, a reduction in stress, and even a significant decrease in their cholesterol levels. 17 in short. When it comes to an instant fix for everyday happiness, certain types of writing have a surprisingly quick and significant impact. Expressing gratitude, thinking about a perfect future, and affectionate writing have been scientifically proven to work. And all they require is a pen, a piece of paper, and a few moments of your time, in 59 seconds or less, to help incorporate effective writing techniques into your life. I have put together a rather unusual diary. Instead of keeping a record of the past, this diary encourages you to write about topics that will help create a happier future. The diary should be completed on 5 days of the week, with each entry taking just a few moments. Maintain the diary for 1 week. Research suggests that you will quickly notice the difference in mood and happiness, and that these changes may persist for months. 18 If you feel the effects wearing off, simply repeat the exercise again. Monday, Thanksgiving. There are many things in your life for which to be grateful. These might include having close friends, being in a loving relationship, being part of a supportive family, enjoying good health, having a roof over your head, or enough food to eat. Alternatively, you might have a job that you love, have happy memories of the past, recently had a nice experience, such as an especially lovely cup of coffee, enjoyed the smile of a stranger, had your dog welcome you home, eaten a great meal, or stopped to smell the flowers. Think back over the past week and list 3 of these things below. Tuesday, terrific times. Think about one of the most wonderful experiences in your life. Perhaps a moment when you felt suddenly contented, were in love, listened to an amazing piece of music, saw an incredible performance, or had a great time with friends. Choose just one experience and imagine yourself back in that moment in time. Imagine how you felt and what was going on around you. Now spend a few moments writing down a description of that experience and how you felt. Do not worry about your spelling, punctuation, or grammar. Instead, simply commit your thoughts to paper. Wednesday, future fantastic. Spend a few moments writing about your life in the future. Imagine that everything has gone as well as it possibly could. Be realistic, but imagine that you have worked hard and achieved all your goals. Imagine you have become the person you really want to be, and your personal and professional life feels like a dream come true. All of this may not help you achieve your goals, but will help you feel good and put a smile on your face. Thursday, dear. Think about someone in your life who is very important to you. It might be your partner, a close friend, or family member. Imagine you only have one opportunity to tell this person how important they are to you. Now write a short letter to this person, describing how much you care for them and the impact they have had on your life. Friday, reviewing the situation. Think back over the past 7 days and make a note of 3 things that went really well for you. The events might be fairly trivial, such as finding a parking space, or more important, such as being offered a new job or opportunity.